long haul.
Hey, miss, do you need some help?
They were together for a long time.
They were building a life together.
They had their children, the picket fence, that fairy tale life.
Until a brutal attack tore it all apart.
She's got a stab wound to the middle chest.
She had scratches. She had bruises.
Stay right here.
It was quite a struggle.
The investigation suggests a love triangle gone wrong.
Do you think she's dating anybody else?
It's possible.
There have been rumors.
But is it her longtime boyfriend?
There was some jealous anger there.
Things have not been great between them.
Was it the new man in her life?
He recently got out of jail.
They were together that day.
She told him that she was done.
Or was it even more complicated than detectives imagined?
DNA was found under her fingernails.
Someone they never heard of.
I'm trying to give you an opportunity to explain.
What are you doing?
June 11th, 2016. It's a few hours before sunrise in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, a blue-collar city of 600,000.
It was a manufacturing city for many, many years. A lot of breweries and a lot of factories.
It's sort of a small Chicago. It grew out of German and Polish roots.
After the war, a lot of African Americans came here looking for better opportunities.
But like a lot of the Rust Belt, those opportunities eventually faded.
Once the manufacturing left, many people who had skills could not find work.
Crime was and continues to be a problem in the city of Milwaukee.
Our homicides have increased, our shootings have increased, stabbings. It actually got the nickname Killwalkie.
And just after 4 o'clock that morning, the city's reputation hits too close to home for Antonio Sharp.
Stay right here.
Antonio calls 911 and reports that his friend, Danielle, has been stabbed.
It's bad, real bad.
Antonio was panicked. He is, at that moment, trying to prevent her from bleeding out.
Put pressure on that. I don't know. D.
It was a pretty bad scene right from the get-go.
Son, come on.
We're using the towel to try to stop the bleeding from the chest.
Stay with me, D. Put pressure on that. Stay with me.
They just try to do whatever they can to keep her alive.
But time is running out.
She's lost a tremendous amount of blood.
Please hurry. Please.
26-year-old Alexandria Danielle Taylor lived every day to the fullest.
She was a fun-loving person who loved life.
She had amazing friends, very full life.
But it hadn't always been easy.
Danielle's teenage years were full of drama.
Danielle had a rebellious streak. She got into it with her mom often.
She was in and out of the house. Unfortunately, she was couch surfing.
It was while she was between places that the teen met Rick Ramsey.
Danielle was about 15 when she met Rick.
Hey, miss.
He was about 19 at the time.
You need some help?
And he'd experienced hardship in his youth as well.
His parents were addicts, and he had been in foster care.
Yeah, I'm all right.
Are you sure? You shouldn't be out here so late.
I don't have anywhere to go tonight.
Rick offered her a place to crash.
To Danielle, his chivalry was attractive.
No problem.
They formed a relationship, and eventually they become an official couple. She was enamored by the fact that he was more mature than she was.
It's typically appealing for young girls to date older men because of their status and because of how mature they are and the stability that they might have.
And a steady relationship with Danielle was equally good for Rick.
Danielle encouraged him to get off the streets and find a job.
She was probably a little more mature than most of the girls her age.
And with Danielle's encouragement, Rick put his days on the streets behind him.
They also started a family.
In 2008, they welcomed their first daughter. And then 6 years later, they had another child.
And by 2016, it looked as if this young couple had built a beautiful life together.
They had been together for 11 years.
They really felt like they had it all.
There is a lot of love there. They were hoping that they would have an opportunity to grow old together.
But now those hopes appear to be in mortal danger.
Her friend Antonio calls 911 and reports that she has been stabbed.
There's blood everywhere.
It's a chaotic scene. Someone is literally dying while you're awaiting what seems like a very long time for the police to arrive.
When first responders arrive, they find Antonio and his sister still holding pressure to Danielle's wound.
They're desperately trying to save her.
As first responders take over, an officer arranges for Antonio and his sister to be transported down to the station.
That way they can get their formal statement on what exactly happened.
Because the police are now investigating a homicide.
After a few moments of trying to revive Danielle, the EMTs pronounced her dead at the scene.
The young lady happened to be past medical attention.
But as first responders exit to make way for detectives, a car comes barreling down the street.
This car comes to a quick screeching stop.
Whoa. She's not supposed to be here. Hey, hold on. Where's Danielle? Hold on. Where is she? Hey, where is she?
He's trying his best to barge his way past the cops.
He's crossing the do not cross tape line, running through towards the residence where the victim is still lying.
The man is Danielle's boyfriend, Rick Ramsey.
He is belligerent, he's upset, he's not responding to officers' commands to calm down, to stay out of the crime scene.
The officer has to physically restrain him.
And he says that she is not supposed to be here.
She's not supposed to be here.
26-year-old Danielle Taylor was happily raising 2 daughters with her longtime boyfriend, Rick Ramsey.
They had been together for 11 years and had a happy home, the picket fence, that fairy tale life.
But now, EMTs have just pronounced Danielle dead inside her friend Antonio Sharp's home.
Soon after, a car screeches up to the scene. Danielle's boyfriend, Rick, jumps out of the car and crosses the crime scene tape.
Where's Danielle? Hold on. Where is she?
The officer has to physically restrain him from continuing to try to push by.
Where's Danielle?
But Rick is still screaming, yelling, refusing to calm down.
Eventually, Rick is placed under arrest for disorderly conduct.
Go ahead and get him down to the station.
I figured the best thing to do was take him into custody, get him in the car, and get him away from the scene to get things calmed down.
I need to see my girl.
While Rick is taken to the station, detectives turn their attention to the crime scene.
Outside of the house, there are 2 large pools of blood, but no distinct trail that would lead the police to believe whatever happened to her likely happened at the house.
Near the blood pools, they see a single earring, as well as a woman's wig and a wallet. The wallet contains Danielle's ID and her credit cards.
Not far away, detectives find a broken blade from a knife.
On the knife, there is inscribed stainless and china, which leads the police to believe that it is part of a kitchen set.
Then the detectives head inside the home.
The victim is on the living room floor. She's got a stab wound to the middle chest. She's got a stab wound to her left temple.
Since the killer left Danielle's wallet on the ground outside, detectives suspect they're dealing with a crime of passion.
This wasn't just someone stabbing her, taking her purse and running away. This was somebody who took some time to inflict some pain
She had scratches. She had a black eye. She had bruises up and down her body.
She has a tear to her earlobe, like an earring was torn from it.
Looking at all of the circumstances, it was an emotional, violent altercation that occurred.
Hoping someone may have witnessed the struggle, detectives begin knocking on neighbors' doors.
It's still before dawn, and most people say they were asleep. They didn't hear or see anything. But there is one woman who said that she left her bedroom window open and said that she was awakened by an argument.
She could hear an altercation that was clearly between a man and a woman.
I tried to ignore it.
But then she heard a woman scream.
At that point, that she got out of bed and she went to go look at her window to see what was going on.
But when she did that, she didn't see anything.
She waited for a moment, but she didn't hear anything else.
So she ignored it and went back to sleep.
But while she didn't see the fight that preceded the stabbing, there may still be a witness.
She has a Ring doorbell camera. It's right across the street, so there's a lot of potential for evidence off of that.
Man, would you mind if we got a copy of the footage from your doorbell camera?
Of course. Can I email it to you?
Yeah. You have a good morning.
Thank you.
After speaking with the neighbor, detectives return to the station.
They need to get statements from Danielle's friend Antonio, his sister, and Danielle's boyfriend, Rick.
The detectives start with Rick.
He's calmer than he was at the scene, but he is very emotional.
I know y'all got a lot of questions for me, but I got some questions too. I don't know what happened. My girl didn't tell me nothing. As soon as I got to the scene, I freaked out. Okay. I just want to know what happened.
Rick is saying, I was just with her at 3 a.m.
That's just an hour before Antonio's 911 call.
I met her at the gas station on Atkinson and Keith.
Rick admits that things had been rocky between him and Danielle, so she had recently moved out.
According to Rick, it was only temporary.
She said she needed some space to get away from me for a while.
But he says that when they met up at the gas station earlier that morning, they'd gotten into a fight.
According to Rick, they got into an argument over money.
If you was to give my phone and get her phone, you would see it in all the safes.
He says she drained his bank account a few days ago.
How much money would that have been?
It was about $600.
And that was like paycheck money?
Yeah, that's my paycheck money.
He was very upset. He wanted to talk to her and get his money back.
She know we got bills to pay.
According to Rick, that's why he'd asked her to meet him at the gas station.
But he said when she did, they soon fell into an argument.
It was like a heated moment because we were both trying to explain ourselves.
He was a little intoxicated. And according to Rick, when Danielle got there, he could tell that Danielle was a little intoxicated too.
I took her purse from her because she still had a bottle of liquor in her purse. I'm like, man, put this down. You don't need this.
This gets Danielle very angry.
Give me that.
Hey, it's fine.
And according to Rick, their heated argument had turned violent.
That was when she snagged me.
Detectives investigating Danielle Taylor's murder have learned that barely an hour before someone stabbed her to death, she had gotten into an explosive argument with her boyfriend, Rick Ramsey.
Rick says he was trying to wrestle Danielle's purse away from her to keep her from drinking anymore.
They get into a struggle and shouting match in front of the gas station.
He says she gave him a black eye.
Hey, it's fine.
Rick managed to keep the purse and take it to his car.
And Danielle stormed off.
He followed her and was able to catch up with her.
Come here. Where do you think you're going? Come here.
It's at this point that Danielle tries fighting him again. So they get into another altercation.
She had grabbed my face, boom. And then when she grabbed it, She pulled me. I tore my dreads out.
He said he tried to defend himself, but she scratches his arm.
And he says that while they were fighting, a police car pulled up next to them.
They was coming east, and then they like, yeah, they put the little sirens on.
They came up and sort of broke it up.
What the hell's going on? No problem, officer.
I wasn't afraid to talk to officers. I didn't know. I know I didn't do nothing wrong.
Break it up and go home.
The policeman suggests that they both go their separate ways and call it a day.
And as far as the patrol officer was concerned, that's what happened with Rick and Danielle.
She walked that way, and I walked towards my car.
But Rick admits that after the police pulled off, he tried to follow Danielle.
I tried to hit the blocks to see if I can see her.
Rick did not want to let it go. He wanted to talk out this issue with Danielle.
But Rick says that after circling the area a couple times, he was unable to find her.
I didn't know where she went. So I said, it. And I went home.
Only he didn't stay there long.
I went upstairs to my room. I looked in my room, looked at my bed, and my bed empty. I'm like, I get in my car.
He decides he's going to go over to his sister's house.
And once he got there, he was greeted with horrific news.
His sister allegedly gets a call saying that Danielle has gotten into some sort of trouble and she has been stabbed.
I'm like, she can't be gone because I was just with her. Like, we was just talking.
Rick says that as soon as he heard that Danielle had been stabbed, he'd race to Antonio's house.
I made all type of illegal turns into red lights just to get there.
He says he had no idea what happened to Danielle after she left the gas station.
But is he telling the truth?
Rick admitted that he went looking for Danielle after their argument.
And he went out of his way to explain his injuries. So could the altercation outside the gas station be a cover story?
You guys have had fights before? We haven't had a fight in God knows how long. I say over a year and a half. Oh, really? So it's ancient history. Yeah.
And now detectives want to know, if Rick didn't kill Danielle, who did?
Do you think she's dating anybody else or seeing anybody else on the side?
It's possible.
There have been rumors spreading around that she was, in fact, in another relationship. She was cheating.
And Rick admits that was another reason he'd asked Danielle to meet him at the gas station early that morning.
I was trying to get something out of her, too, at the same time, which was the truth. Right.
One of the motives for him going to see her was to see if there was any truth to these rumors.
And he wanted information as to what the status of their relationship was going to be.
She basically has left him. He does not want her to leave.
But according to Rick, that doesn't mean he had a motive for murder.
I know y'all trying to figure out if I killed my girl or not. But I did not kill my girl, man.
Despite Rick's protests of innocence, detectives decide to hold him in custody.
He's booked on disorderly conduct charges.
They take his clothes to see if there is any DNA evidence on his clothes that would connect him to the murder of Danielle Taylor.
Then the detectives move on to Danielle's friend, Antonio Sharp.
They want to get him into the interrogation room to get a formal statement from him.
He was the first individual to see her after the altercation.
Also, detectives suspect Antonio may be more than just Danielle's friend.
According to Rick, there had been rumors that Danielle had been hooking up with someone else.
Detectives wonder if he had found out that she left to meet with Rick.
And if so, had that made him angry?
When detectives sit down with Antonio, he doesn't appear angry.
He was obviously distraught and upset over the incident.
Can't believe this happened.
He says he wants to do whatever he can to find out who killed Danielle.
Okay, so how long have you known Danielle?
I've known her forever.
Antonio was a childhood friend of Miss Taylor.
So you're just friends?
Well,
He admits that he's always had feelings for Danielle.
But he says that over the years, they'd lost touch.
He recently got out of jail himself on a burglary charge.
I looked her up when I got out, but she was with somebody else.
Even though he's never met Rick, he knows that he's Danielle's long-term boyfriend. And he knows that they have 2 kids together.
But that hadn't stopped the old friends from reconnecting.
They were just friendly at first, but then he learned that she too had feelings for him.
I thought you knew.
Well, I know now.
And that's when their relationship turned sexual.
Were you worried that Rick would find out?
I was.
But according to Antonio, Danielle wasn't.
She told him that she was done with Rick.
She just wanted to get out.
Antonio Sharp, the man who called 911 and reported that Danielle Taylor had been stabbed, says the 26-year-old mother of 2 had been planning to leave her boyfriend, Rick Ramsey.
Antonio tells detectives that Danielle wanted to leave Rick for good.
What about Rick?
Antonio supposedly knows this because she had been dating him behind Rick's back.
However, Antonio claims that he wasn't the only reason Danielle wanted to leave Rick.
Antonio says that Rick beat her up regularly.
You ever see him hit her?
No, but that's what she said.
He said she kept complaining about Rick and the violence that was in the home.
Antonio claims that there have been times she has had bruises and marks.
So she'd left Rick and was staying with Antonio and his sister.
Antonio had been staying with his sister since he'd been released from jail.
But as detectives know, leaving an abusive relationship can be really scary.
Is that what happened in Danielle's case?
If he had found out that she was trying to move on, it would have pushed him over the edge.
Hoping to learn more, detectives ask Antonio to walk them through the events leading up to Danielle's murder.
He's saying that they were together that day.
They had a few friends over and had been drinking out on the porch.
Antonio says that once the party wound down at around 10 o'clock, he'd gone inside.
He ends up falling asleep on a couch.
Danielle woke him up sometime later.
Hey, Antonio.
What?
I'm about to go out for a little bit. Can we pick that up?
Okay.
Antonio says he fell back to sleep and didn't wake up until about 4 a.m.
He hears a knock at the door.
When he opened it, he was shocked to see Danielle standing there.
Danielle! Oh my God!
Her wig's gone and her face was splattered with blood.
She falls in his arms. He lays her down.
Hey, what happened?
That's when he noticed the stab above her chest.
Who did this to you?
He kept trying to ask who did this, but by this time, she was unresponsive.
Antonio says that by then, his sister had come into the room.
Get my phone, go get my phone. Dean, come on, say something.
He begins calling 911. He runs and gets a towel to try to stop the bleeding from the chest.
Here, put pressure on it. Hello, it's bad. It's real bad.
And then the police finally arrive.
On the surface, Antonio's story sounds genuine.
Antonio is crying and obviously in great distress.
Or could they be tears of guilt?
Detectives wonder if he had found out that she left to meet with Rick.
Maybe he was waiting up for her when she got back and a confrontation ensued.
To see if they can verify Antonio's story, the detectives turn to his sister.
She confirms that she, Antonio, and Danielle had been drinking on the porch.
And she says that when she went to bed around 11, her brother was asleep on the couch.
Did you see or hear Danielle leave?
No. Next thing I heard was Antonio screaming downstairs, so I ran down there to see what was going on.
And when she got downstairs, Danielle was already collapsed on the floor, bleeding.
Did Danielle ever tell you that Rick was abusing her?
No, but I knew he was.
She has had bruises and marks. It was hard not to notice.
And she swears that her brother could not have been the source of those bruises.
She says right off the bat, my brother had nothing to do with this murder. And there's no way with how much he cared about Danielle that he would have ever hurt her.
But while she was happy for her brother, she worried what Rick would do if he found out about Antonio's relationship with Danielle.
She thinks Rick found out about the new relationship from a mutual friend and wouldn't be surprised if he wanted to do something about it.
That's all we have for now. Appreciate you coming in.
Had Rick found out? And had he done something about it? Detectives suspect the truth lies in the surveillance video.
Hey, come take a look at this.
In addition to the neighbor's doorbell cam, the detectives also requested security footage from the gas station, where Danielle met with Rick.
Reviewing the footage appears to confirm Rick's story.
He was at that gas station where he did say that he met up with her before the homicide happened.
In the footage, it's clear the two are in a heated argument.
There's even footage of the police officer coming past and sending them in their separate directions.
After the officer leaves, they see that Rick follows Danielle and goes in the same direction. So far, it all fits with what Rick had told them.
According to Rick, he couldn't find Danielle, so he gave up and went home.
But when they review the doorbell camera footage from Danielle's neighbor, it tells a different story.
On the video, the detectives see Danielle walk up the street towards the house.
And not 1 minute after, we see a figure follow behind her.
Someone who detectives are pretty sure is Rick Ramsey.
That's what's called damning evidence.
Rick, what are you doing?
When questioned about the murder of his girlfriend, Danielle Taylor, Rick Ramsey has admitted that he'd had an altercation with the 26-year-old mother of two less than an hour before she was fatally stabbed.
The police had broken up the fight, and Rick said he went home afterwards.
But when they pull up the footage from the neighbor's house, it's obvious that he had been lying.
The video shows Danielle walking up to her friend Antonio's home. But it also reveals that someone is following her.
Someone who detectives are pretty sure is Rick Ramsey.
He has one hand behind his back, which leads police to suspect that he might be carrying something.
On the sidewalk in front of the house, Danielle and Rick have a brief confrontation.
Then they both disappear out of view.
Then, a few minutes later, Rick comes back into view.
Rick is walking away from the house and is no longer carrying anything.
After watching the video, detectives bring Rick back to the interrogation room.
At first, he sticks to his original story.
Everything that I'm seeing right now is what happened.
But then the detectives tell Rick that they have video that shows him following Danielle to Antonio's house.
How do you explain that? How do we explain video?
I don't know.
They do what we call the coming to Jesus moment.
It has little effect on Rick.
I really don't know where else to go on. You don't remember it? It's your story, and it's yours. You can stick with it.
Then they haul Rick back to his cell. But after another 24 hours behind bars, Rick's story starts to change.
He's brought back into an interview room yet again.
He says, you know what? It is possible that I found her and that we did have another argument. I can't remember much because, remember, I was drunk.
Something come over me, like something get into me, and I'm like did I black out and do something?
You began to think about the consequences of your behaviors, and you began to try to develop some rationalizations.
Did the devil come into me and start controlling me like that for real? And then took it out of my head. I wanted to be found, man. I wanted to be found. I feel a lot better when it's found.
I guarantee you.
I feel a lot better when it's found.
As he's confronted with the counters to his lies, you're going to see acceptance.
My brain is rattling, man. Rattling. Because my girl gone, man. And she not coming back. And I want her to rest in peace. I want her family to have peace.
Now that they can finally get some of these things that they're holding in off of their chest, you almost become that priest that you come and make a confession to.
I gotta get it out. Gotta get it out. Jim. I killed my girl, Jim. I know. I killed my girl, man. I know. I killed my girl. I know.
He did say, I killed her. And then he finally got into the description of how it happened.
He admits that he did, in fact, follow her.
He ends up finding Miss Taylor at the residence where this happened.
Rick says he parked down the street.
Then he says he began searching through Danielle's purse.
Remember, he kept the purse after the police made them go in their separate directions.
He was looking for the knife he knew Danielle always carried with her for protection.
This was a kitchen knife.
He decides to take it with him when he goes to confront her.
Rick, what you doing?
Is this where he lives?
Ooh.
Don't lie to me.
At some point, he says he grabbed her arm.
What happens next? And she swung at me. That's when I stabbed her.
He said the anger wasn't so much of her cheating, the anger was of her not providing him with the truth. There's still some struggle. He said arms are flaring around and all that. And then that's when he does the second stab.
Do you remember the knife breaking?
And he claims not to know what he did with the handle of the knife either.
Somewhere, different world.
Even after the stab, all he can remember is not being remorseful, but being angry.
After it, I remember being in the car.
Coupled with the video evidence, Rick's confession is all that the police need to secure a conviction.
Mr. Ramsey was charged with the reckless homicide of his girlfriend.
But Rick decides to retain a lawyer. And the lawyer immediately comes in with questions about this alleged confession.
These interrogation tactics are empirically known to be very effective at getting confessions, but they're also known to get false confessions.
And when detectives get the DNA results back from the crime lab, it appears that Rick's attorney may have a point.
A man's DNA was found under Danielle's fingernails, but it is not the DNA of Rick Ramsey.
It's also not a match for Danielle's lover, Antonio Sharp.
Which means that there is a possible third suspect out there.
With a taped confession and surveillance footage that appears to show him at the scene of the crime, police and prosecutors are confident that 30-year-old Rick Ramsey is responsible for Danielle Taylor's murder.
That would be consistent with what the evidence shows.
They believe that this is an open and shut case.
Until the DNA test results turn the entire case on its head.
The evidence found under Danielle's fingernails does not match Rick Ramsey. And it doesn't match Antonio Sharp.
The results match for a third man, someone they never heard of.
His name is Kenneth Arnold.
It just so happened that he was incarcerated on another charge.
So detectives are able to bring him in for questioning.
We want to show you some pictures of some people that you might know. Okay?
Sure, go ahead.
They start off by showing him Danielle's photo, but Kenneth insists that he's never seen her before.
Never ever seen her.
Never.
The detectives know that's a lie.
We found evidence of your DNA. We're trying to give you an opportunity to explain because there might be a reasonable explanation.
Nonetheless, Kenneth insists that he has no idea how his DNA got there.
Your skin underneath her fingernails, like if she would scratch you.
That seems to ring a bell for Kenneth.
I've been having sex with girls around here.
Kenneth is known to be a little bit of a player.
It's kind of crazy. There's been a lot of sex partners.
Like a lot is like 5? 10?
Probably like 30.
30?
Yeah, 30 different women.
He says it is entirely possible that Danielle was one of them.
Question is, had he done more than sleep with her?
Did you kill this woman?
No.
Did you stab her?
No.
Despite the presence of his DNA, detectives think he's telling the truth.
They have no other evidence. There's no other motive or direct connection to Kenneth.
And he doesn't appear on any of the surveillance videos.
But the fact that it's Kenneth's DNA under Danielle's fingernails does put the prosecutors in an awkward position. One the defense will no doubt try to exploit.
The obvious argument is if he was the murderer and they engaged in a struggle, the victim may have clawed at her assailant and got his DNA under her fingernails.
When Rick goes on trial for murder in September of 2022, the prosecutors begin by focusing on his motive.
He found out that she's cheating on him.
And on the night of the murder, he confronted her about it.
Is this where he lives? Ooh, don't lie to me.
He couldn't let her go.
He stabs her in the chest.
It was an emotional, violent altercation.
He stabbed her again, above her left temple.
And the prosecutors claimed to have plenty of proof.
They presented the evidence of the fight earlier that day, which clearly occurred.
They show the surveillance video.
Most of all, they have Rick's confession.
You my girl, man.
But when it's the defense's turn, they do their best to cast doubt on that confession.
During the interview, law enforcement repeatedly tell him that they have a video of him committing the murder. That was a lie. Law enforcement did not have a clear video of anything. The next line of attack for the defense was to get an expert witness to talk about false confessions. We did have our expert witness talk about techniques employed by law enforcement, sleep deprivation, lying about certain evidence they have, and pushing an individual towards the narrative that law enforcement is trying to get from that interview.
But that's all just the lead up to the defense's main point. That Danielle had Kenneth Arnold's DNA under her fingernails when she died.
He told police he didn't know the victim and then said, well, I may have slept with her, but I didn't know who she was. And nothing was followed up about that.
But the jury, with all the evidence, and especially the security footage, they just aren't buying it.
They find Rick guilty of murder.
He's sentenced to 30 years in prison.
If he completes his 30 years, he's still going to have another 12 years of probation, which means once he's out, he's still going to be monitored for 12 years.
Justice has been served. But that does little to lessen the tragedy of Danielle's death.
Because not only was there one life.
Oh, Sam. Dang it. How you gonna win like that?
It don't matter. Put your 5 in.
Give it up. Run!
In September of 2014, the homicide office received a call from a woman requesting that we reopen her son.
I appreciate you taking on my son's case.
Of course. Like we said, we're going to do everything we can. Thank you for taking the time, Mrs. Anderson. We'll be in touch.
It's good to work.
And we decide it's time to go dig up this cold file. It's time to blow the dust off this thing and find out what was missed and see if we can put these puzzle pieces together.
There's not much here.
This can't be everything, though.
We've got a box of puzzle pieces that's half empty. There's really nothing in it.
So it says that John Greer was the original detective.
We and Greer worked together when we first got to homicide. He was one of the old heads in the unit, good detective, but he had been in homicide over 20 years and was worn down.
So his report on the crime scene is pretty detailed.
On November 9th, 1991, just after 11 p.m., Atlanta Police 911 is called in reference to a dead body of a child inside of the Martin Street apartments.
According to what we learned from the file, there were some witness statements that were taken from people that were there when the shooting happened.
Oh, Sam!
There's some OGs gambling near a building inside of Martin Street Plaza. Jeremiah, he's just on his bike. Jeremiah's just watching. His friends are just watching. We learn a red Mustang pulls up, and two men emerge from this red Mustang.
So boom, they hop out, start yelling at them.
Give it up!
When the gunshots rang out,
Run, y'all run!
everyone scattered. And as our victim started to run away, he maybe made 10 steps and fell. When police arrived, they found Jeremiah there with a gunshot wound in his back and an exit wound in his chest. He never even saw it coming.
The only one hit was Jeremiah.
The crime scene photos were horrendous. It was hard to even see, as seasoned homicide detectives, a boy sitting there dead, motionless, next to his bicycle. It was the worst thing we've ever seen.
Does it say what kind of gun?
No, they didn't get the actual projectile that killed Jeremiah, but they recovered shell cases from 2 different weapons.
There were 3 9mm shell casings, and there were 2 .223 shell casings. That's an assault rifle.
I don't see a description of the shooter.
No, look right here. They had scarves over their faces. Oh, man. Listen to this.
2 witnesses described one of the shooters literally stepping over Jeremiah's body to take the money that was on the ground.
A vein started popping out of my forehead. That just fueled me even more.
That's nasty, man.
You want that guy that stepped over that poor kid's body to get their day in front of a judge.
We knew we were dealing with 2 vicious killers, 2 people that had gotten away with murder all this time, and we had no idea what other crimes they may have committed since 1991.
No other evidence recovered at the scene.
No, they recovered the car.
The next day, November 10th, about 10:30 a.m., Atlanta police recover a red Mustang by Tanner's grocery store.
The vehicle was stolen 2 days earlier.
And there's some significance with the area where they dumped it, because it's close to our crime scene. And it's near Four Seasons Apartments. These guys are probably from that area.
And inside the car, they found a .223 shell casing that was a match to the ones found on scene.
Okay, so definitely our shooter's car.
Mm-hmm.
They did dust the car for prints, and none were found. These guys were pros. They knew exactly what they were doing.
We got our work cut out for us on this one, baby.
Yeah.
Let's get to it.
We got to work this case from the ground up. We're definitely in a situation where, I'm Doc Brown and he's Marty. We're going back to the future on this thing. Vin gets this idea. Let's go dig up John Greer. I mean, he's been retired for quite some time now. Let's go to his home and let's just jog his memory.
Thanks for taking the time, John.
I got nothing but time.
So we've reopened the Jeremiah Anderson case from 91.
That case. That kid, it was brutal. I worked that case hard.
He said he tried to get this case moved forward as much as he can, but at the same time, he's working 3, 4, 5 other homicides and trying to manage his personal life and his health. And he said it almost killed him.
We've got the file, but we know it's not always in the file.
Well, I don't know. There was one tip. Someone ID'd the shooters. So Rod and, what was it? Paul Ray.
And that's something we love to hear. We got nicknames from back in the day, Poe, Ray, and Rod. We gonna figure out who these jokers are.
We asked around. I mean, we had a lot of doors slammed in our faces. Honestly, the only good lead was the other robbery.
Greer goes on to say that the same night that Jeremiah Anderson was killed, there was another robbery just a few miles away.
What, they had the same MO?
Yeah, 2 perps, red Mustang, even shot a guy, but he survived.
That means we get a chance to talk to this victim and ask him, maybe he saw the faces, maybe he knows information.
The missing pieces to this cold case begin to fall into place.
The driver got out. He had an AK.
There's no doubt this was connected.
Some guy named James.
We thought we had this figured out.
So it's not our guy.
It was time to rebuild this case from the ground up.
It takes a wild plan to put us back on track.
All right, Mr. Taylor, take a look at this lineup.
We had to dig in the toolbox for a new trick.
Y'all can put this on me.
He knew the past caught.
I pray you find the man who killed my son.
We're investigating a cold case dating back to 1991 involving 11-year-old Jeremiah Anderson.
I worked that case hard.
After meeting with the original detective, we found out that there's an anonymous tip with 2 people involved, some guy named Poe Ray and a guy named Rod.
Honestly, the only good lead was the other robbery.
These 2 cases were damn near identical.
2 perps, red Mustang, even shot a guy, but he survived.
There's no doubt these were connected.
So we're on Bullock Street about 15 minutes after Jeremiah's murder.
Who was the victim?
Michael Simpson. He's 20.
According to Michael Simpson, a red Mustang pulls up, 2 men emerge. They say give it up, exactly like the suspects in the Jeremiah Anderson case. They sprayed the area with gunfire.
He got hit in the knee, but somehow he still managed to get away.
So did Michael give you anything?
He said that the shooter was someone that he knew, James.
You never ID'd him?
No.
He got so wrapped up with these other cases, in his own words, this case of Jeremiah Anderson fell through the cracks.
Hey, thank you, man. We appreciate it. All right.
We got some seeds. We just got to keep watering it till we get what we need on this case.
At this point, we had 3 names to work with: Poe Ray, Rod, and James. We decided to focus on tracking down old witnesses to re-interview. You never know what new information you may get out of someone.
Yo, thanks for your time, man.
So the first listed witness we go to talk to is a kid at the time was named Justin Bell. He's a grown man now, but he recalls Jeremiah Anderson was his best friend.
What do you remember about that night?
We actually went to a basketball game that night. And then after that, we watched the old heads throw dice.
And they were just spectating, just watching the grown folks fighting over money on the ground, you know, throwing bones.
But I remember seeing that car, the red Mustang. It just kept rolling by slowly. Go again. Need some shoes, need some shoes.
He actually saw that red Mustang casing the dice game. They're just trolling around like a shark swim through the ocean.
Next thing I know, the guys got out and just started shooting.
So did you get a good look at their faces?
Nah, they were masked up.
Okay, what about weapons? Did you see them?
Not really. It was one guy and he had like a rifle, I think.
Did you ever hear on the street who might have done this?
Word on the street is some guy named James.
Now, we have 2 accounts of somebody mentioning the name James.
All right, thanks for your time, man.
Great information. We're on the right track to finding out who these guys are. Next up, we focus on the other shooting victim, Michael Simpson. We learned that Michael Simpson is in Fulton County Jail waiting trial on some very unrelated and minor charges.
We got to see what he remembers. He may put us on the road to solving this thing.
What's up, man? Woodward APD homicide.
What's this about?
He thinks it's about something he did, but it's actually about something that happened to him.
So do you remember in 91 being robbed and shot?
Yeah, just hanging with friends when this car pulled up.
Mustang?
That's right. And a guy hopped out with a Mac 11.
And you sure about the gun?
Mm-hmm.
The Mac 11 can shoot a 9mm round. So now we have somebody giving us the caliber of weapon and the type of weapon that matches at least one of the shell cases we know were on Jeremiah Anderson's scene.
The driver got out, and he had an AK.
2 Two guys get out, no masks on, demanded money using the same words, give it up.
What happened after that?
They took my money, and I ran off, and they opened fire. Hit me in my leg.
And what's more, Michael Simpson tells us he heard the people that shot him actually shot the little boy over at 600 Martin Street.
So we heard that you may know who the shooter is.
I think it was this boy, James.
Did you see his face?
Nah, it was too dark.
He knew it was James because James always drives a red Mustang.
What else can you tell us about James?
He got a brother named Stanley.
So when I hear the name James, it doesn't mean anything until Michael Simpson says he has a brother named Stanley.
Hold up. Stanley, this cat, he used to move dope over in Mechanicsville.
That's him?
I know these guys. Yeah, they're brothers. Last name Chambers.
This makes perfect sense. James is a professional robber. He wouldn't sell dope if you paid him to do it. He is a thrill seeker, always looking for action, while his brother, Stanley, is the businessman.
Thanks a lot, man. We'll be in touch.
Thank you, brother.
We got a lot of great, useful information out of Michael. Now it's time to head back to the office and see what else we can spin up.
So these brothers shouldn't be too hard to track down.
Right. Yo, but here's the thing that doesn't make sense to me, man. We know these perps were rolling in a stolen red Mustang, right?
The Mustang used in our murder was stolen on November 8th, just the night before Jeremiah was killed.
But James supposedly owns a Mustang. So did he report his own car stolen to do the robbery?
Right. Okay. Let's check the DMV.
Okay.
Michael's whole reasoning behind James is the shooter rides on his car.
Here we go. James Chambers out of Mechanicsville had a red Mustang in '91 registered to him. Check this out. Here's a VIN number.
All right, so what's the VIN on the murder car?
We got two different cars.
So at this point, we know the vehicle used in the homicide was stolen out of Austell, Georgia. We know James lives in Atlanta, and he still got his car.
So it's not our guy.
The car threw everybody off.
Word in the neighborhoods travel like wildfire. So anybody that knows anyone that drives a red Mustang, they think they're involved in the case. It's no surprise that James's name kept coming up.
All right, so now that we got James out the way, let's focus on Poe, Ray, and Rod.
Media time. I'll hit up the news stations.
Yeah, let's blow it up.
Well, I know how effective the media was in getting the information out about the murder of Jeremiah Anderson in 1991. Why not in 2014 regenerate that same energy and have the media jump in and help us again?
Anyone with any information?
Our public plea.
Jeremiah's family needs your help.
Strikes a chord.
I'm excited. I can't wait to put these pieces together.
This is your past catching up to you.
But nothing is easy in our line of work.
There ain't no like that.
Next thing I know, the guys just got out and started shooting.
We're reinvestigating the 1991 cold case murder of 11-year-old Jeremiah Anderson.
And we discovered that there are at least two people connected to the death of Jeremiah Anderson named Poe Ray and Rod. We just got to figure out their true names.
Media time.
We decide the best course of action is to reach out to the media. They've helped us many times in the past. We think they can help us out again.
So we have reopened the murder of 11-year-old Jeremiah Anderson, who was shot and killed in 1991 in the Summerhill neighborhood.
We have a press conference with all of the local news stations there. We want to show them that we are bringing this thing back up. We want the public's help.
So at this point, we're asking that anyone with any information that can lead to the identities of the two men involved, please call the Crime Stoppers hotline.
What we have now in 2014 that they didn't have in 1991 is a program called Crime Stoppers, a tip line that's widely publicized throughout Metro Atlanta. You can still remain anonymous and get a cash reward.
And we know that the suspects fled the scene in a stolen red Mustang.
We have solved numerous cases in the past up until this point using Crime Stoppers.
Jeremiah's family needs your help. That's all for now. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So we feel using this valuable resource, it's going to basically breathe some life back into this case.
You got Quinn.
Less than a week later, we get a tipster that calls in that says that a guy named Raymond McDaniel is one of the shooters in the Jeremiah Anderson homicide.
Thank you.
What do you got?
Crime Stoppers. So they just got a tip identifying Raymond McDaniel, AKA Poe Ray, as a shooter.
This is 100% government name that got delivered to us like a gift. Poe Ray, Raymond McDaniel. I love it when it comes together.
Says he lives over in the Four Seasons apartments.
Right by where the car was dumped.
Sir, this thing is moving, Vinny.
We got something they couldn't get in 1991, so we're already one step ahead of that.
All right, let's work. Come on.
Our community of Atlanta was just as incensed and irritated and upset because this family and this child has not had justice in so many years.
We learned this wasn't the first time Raymond McDaniel's name came up in this investigation. It turns out that this case had been looked at by a detective on the multi-agency cold case squad. That was back in December of 2006 when a woman named Caroline Matthews called in a tip.
According to Carolyn, Raymond McDaniel and the father of her child, Roderick Clark, killed Jeremiah Anderson. So Poe Ray is Raymond McDaniel and Roderick Clark is Rod.
Unfortunately, that detective that interviewed Carolyn never did any follow-up.
We were pissed off. Perhaps this case could have been solved years earlier. We needed to make amends now.
Carolyn Matthews is getting a visit from us ASAP.
All right, talk to us.
She's been holding on to this information for over 20-some years. She can't wait to spill it to these two guys in suits.
After I gave information to the detective in 2006, I thought it was over. But then they never got locked up.
She knew that Poe Ray, Raymond McDaniel, and she knew that Roderick Clark, her child's father, had not been arrested for this because she's from that neighborhood.
I didn't know what to think.
Carolyn Matthews explains that while she and Roderick Clark have children together, they are not a couple.
Tell us what you know.
It was 1991, the night the little boy was killed.
She's at home, over in Four Seasons where she lives, when she gets a frantic knock at her door. It's Roderick Clark.
He was acting all crazy, wanted me to turn on the TV.
The news comes on and it's, a story about a shooting in Atlanta. Roderick told her that he and Raymond McDaniel had robbed some guys that were gambling and shots rang out and a young boy got killed.
He said they were just robbing. They weren't trying to kill no little boy.
He's not taking responsibility. He's blaming our victim at this point for being out at 11 o'clock at night. It was absurd.
He needs to be held accountable.
She has taken this half-baked puzzle and she's given it some character, she's given it some strength.
Where can we find Rod now?
I don't know. I haven't seen him in years.
We thank Carolyn for information, and we head back to the office to decipher all this good information we just got from this valuable witness. So we get back to the office, and we're eager to find out who Roderick Clark really is.
All right, so Roderick was 18 years old back in 91. Let's see what your boy's been up to the last 20 years. Oh, he's been busy.
He's had many run-ins with the law, aggravated assault, battery, drugs, firearm possession. You name it, this guy has done it.
I got an address for him.
Yeah, but it's old.
We see an address for Roderick Clark, but it was so many years ago, we're not even sure if it's a good location.
What about Raymond McDaniel?
We find out that Raymond McDaniel was age 22 in 1991 when our murder happened.
We got another frequent flyer here.
This guy's got robberies, he's got ag assaults, all kind of drug charges throughout his criminal history.
All right, I see he's the older of the two.
Maybe the ringleader?
Yeah, maybe. We got an address for Poe Ray?
Yeah. Check it out.
Let's go see about him.
Let's go for it. All right, come on.
We get to Raymond McDaniel's house. I flip on my tape recorder, put it in my lapel pocket.
Oh, got action.
As that door begins to open up, I'm like, game time.
Easy.
Quinn and I are like, all right, here we go. We have no idea what's about to happen.
The night the little boy was killed.
After making a plea to the media for helping the Jeremiah Anderson homicide, we track down a witness that leads us to two people involved in our homicide by the name of Roderick Clark and Raymond McDaniel.
We got another frequent flyer here.
After searching the database, we find an address for Raymond McDaniel.
You got action.
We're getting close to the truth, so we decided to pay Raymond McDaniel a visit and just see what he's got to say.
Can I help you?
We see a brother sitting in a wheelchair, and we ask for Raymond McDaniel, and he says, "That's me."
How you doing, sir? Detective Velasquez, can we come and talk to you for a minute?
Yes, sir. We come to find out that Raymond McDaniel became wheelchair-bound after participating in a robbery and was shot and paralyzed for the rest of his life.
What's going on?
A homicide case.
I need to talk to you about a case that's pretty old, man. 1991. 11-year-old kid got killed.
I can see that Raymond McDaniel is shocked straight to hell. He can't believe we're at his home.
Your name has come up in this thing with Roderick Clark from the beginning. I've reopened the case as a cold case. We held nothing back. We wanted him to hear the gravity, the magnitude of this case.
We've seen your criminal record, man.
That's the past.
What Raymond McDaniel did admit to was that he did participate in some armed robberies back in the early 90s. He also admitted to actually living in Four Seasons, and that makes sense.
This young man, and let me show you a picture of him, okay? You got kids? How many kids you got?
3.
Well, that kid never saw life after 11 years old. He got shot in the back when he was running away when you guys tried to rob those folks.
He's been told straight up what the situation is. It's soul-searching time now for Raymond McDaniel.
Come on, man, talk to me.
What he didn't do was say it wasn't me. What he didn't do was deny involvement in anything. And sometimes that's better than a confession. But take a look at this kid, man. 11 years old. He didn't deserve that. Who knows what this kid could have been today had he lived. What I was trying to do is reach his heart where he feels the genuine remorse for the life of this little boy being taken.
Yeah, I remember that case.
Okay.
It seemed to start working because he started to give a little more information, little bits and pieces. Okay, you remember what part of town it was in?
Well, over there around Four Seasons, I guess.
Because we had a photograph in tow of Roderick Clark, we show it to our new friend.
All right, so is this who you were riding around robbing folks with?
Sometimes.
This was a beautiful moment. Raymond McDaniel is cleaning up all the edges on this murky homicide that now has legs.
You need to get out in front of this thing. Because this guy right here, your boy, Rod, he's gonna be singing. You know what? Let's do something. Just give me a call when you want to tell me everything.
So we leave Raymond McDaniel to kind of marinate on this shocking new information we delivered. Now it's time to switch back and start looking for Roderick Clark.
Before we tried to reach out to Roderick Clark, we wanted to take a look at his criminal history. We were trying to find anything that may help us with the case.
We located an arrest report filed on December the 14th, 1991, 35 days after Jeremiah Anderson's murder.
According to the report, Roderick was firing a gun into the air. When police stopped Roderick's vehicle, they saw him pass a gun to a person in the back seat. The weapon was a Mac-11 that could have been the one used in Jeremiah's shooting. Unfortunately, we couldn't find any record of where the gun was now.
So we couldn't run a ballistics test.
The least we could do was prove that Roderick had a Mac-11 in his possession close in time to the homicide.
This was good circumstantial evidence.
At this point, we just need to make a run at Roderick Clark. We were able to track down an address indicator and we beat a path out there.
How you doing, man? We're with APB Homicide, all right? We're looking for Roderick Clark.
Rod?
Yeah, Rod.
He ain't here.
Okay. Are you related to Rod?
No.
She wouldn't even give us her name. She knew that two suits and a tie were sitting in front of her, asking her questions about Roderick Clark. She's not giving up the goods.
All right, so how do you know this brother?
He's sort of a friend of the family.
Okay. You know where we can find him?
Hey, this is very important, okay?
He doesn't live there, but she had his number. We convinced her to give us his phone number.
Even though this family friend wasn't too excited to have met us that day, she gave us this brother's phone number. This is golden. I'm excited.
We decided to just give it a try. I dial the number.
It's ringing.
It's a good number. It rings, voicemail picks up.
Hi, Mr. Clark. This is Detective Vince Velasquez with Atlanta PD.
Kept it very simple, left my phone number, told him I'm available anytime. Please call back when you can.
Hey, we got a hook in the water. See if we catch one.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
So a couple hours go by and my phone rings.
Yo, Chen. Hello?
This is he.
Yeah, Roger Clark.
It's actually Roger Clark. He called me. We can't wait to hear what Roger's got to say.
You give me a call when you want to tell me everything.
We've zeroed in on Raymond McDaniel and Roderick Clark for the 1991 murder of 11-year-old Jeremiah Anderson.
How you doing, man? This is very important, okay?
While tracking down one of our prime suspects, Roderick Clark, we get a phone number and leave a message.
Hi, Mr. Clark. This is Detective Vince Velasquez with Atlanta PD.
And then a couple hours later, Roger Clark actually calls me back.
Hello?
This is he.
Yeah, Roger Clark.
This worked. He wants to know why Atlanta PD's calling his cell phone.
So I want to speak with you about a case I'm working.
It's a homicide investigation.
Homicide investigation.
Roger interrupted me and said, well, what's that got to do with me? I'm like, your name came up. Lots of names come up.
Hey, I ain't did that. I ain't got no trouble.
In 1991, 11-year-old boy got shot and killed.
Yeah, the 91. Yeah, I was just graduating from high school.
I'm listening to Vin talk to this guy on the phone. He's trying to distance himself from something that happened in 1991.
All the names that have come up were the same age as you were.
We want to spook him. We wanted to tell him he's a prime suspect in this.
We just got to ask you some questions and just like everybody else and cross your name off the list.
We wanted to make it seem as it was not a big deal. Like we weren't very pressed about talking to Roger Clark. And it seemed to work.
Yeah, I ain't did no like that.
I just listened to Vince convince this guy over a cell phone to meet us at the homicide office and talk about a case that happened in 1991.
All right, so I'll see you in a couple. Thanks, man.
This guy's a seasoned criminal. We got to come up with some kind of a plan, something different to coax him into giving us the rest of his life.
Look, all we got on this dude is a wafer-thin file.
But Rod doesn't know that.
What do you mean?
What if we had something solid to show him? Give me a second. Hey, Smith, can you help me with something?
So what we did, we set up this ruse, and we had a fellow officer who pretended to be a witness named George Taylor, who was there on the night of Jeremiah's homicide, who saw what happened and got a look at the suspects.
So you're gonna be our witness, and we're gonna record your statement, cool?
Copy that.
We assembled a six-pack photo lineup, put Roger Clark's photo in one of the slots.
And we're rolling.
The script was that this officer posing as a witness would say, that's him, that's one of the guys I saw that night. And then I say on tape.
All right, Mr. Taylor, take a look at this lineup.
If you see any of the individuals that were in that red Mustang when the shooting occurred, go ahead and let me know.
There's the guy. That's the one, I'm sure of it.
This guy right here?
Yeah, that's the guy.
For the record, Mr. Taylor has picked number 5, Roderick Clark.
Hey, cut.
All right, let's hope he falls for it.
We always worked our way outside the box as much as possible during our investigations, and this was no different. Roderick Clark arrives at the homicide office ready to participate in a videotaped interview.
Not in custody, not under arrest. Doors open.
Yeah, I just want to get my name clear.
That's cool. That's cool.
Because Vince developed a rapport with Roderick Clark while he talked to him on the phone, we felt it was important that Vince do the actual face-to-face videotaped interview.
I'll be honest with you. There's a little more to this than what I let you believe on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I really want to know. I want to know what's going on.
Had to be a little more technical, a little more scientific, a little more matter of fact with the evidence that we have, and not do such a soft toss, but something in the middle.
Raymond McDaniel. How do you know him?
Raymond, I don't know no Raymond McDaniel.
You don't know Raymond McDaniel?
We believe Raymond and Rod grew up together. I pushed the photo in front of Roger Clark. He looks at it and says, I don't know who that is.
I used to hang out.
Oh, no, he ain't hung out with me.
No? Okay.
They were Rayfield, my brother-in-law.
Well, right then and there, it's clear. Roderick Clark's ass is lying.
I tell Roderick about the murder of Jeremiah Anderson.
He took a bullet in the back. AK round went right through him.
So what you trying to say? I was one of the guys?
Roger Clark is in denial mode. He's like, I ain't got nothing to do with this, didn't do anything. I don't know how you got my name.
It's time for my partner to hit him with our fake witness.
We have a witness, right, that we have found. I'm gonna let you hear this recording.
No witness?
Yes.
They seen me do something like this?
Saw you in the car.
Ain't nobody seen me in no damn car 91.
I pull out the tape recorder, and I just press play.
I don't know no Raymond McDaniel.
You don't know Raymond McDaniel?
We finally get a face-to-face with suspect Roderick Clark.
But Roderick refuses to admit he had anything to do with Jeremiah Anderson's murder back in 1991.
That ain't me.
Okay.
We've got one last Hail Mary.
We have a witness, right, that we have found.
In preparation for his interview, we came up with a plan to put together a staged audio lineup.
No witness?
Yes, I saw you in the car.
A police officer poses as a witness and actually picks Roderick Clark out of the lineup as someone involved in this case. When I press play on the audio recorder and this stage lineup presentation starts to play, I'm watching Roderick Clark.
I'm watching this interview, fingers crossed, hoping it works.
This guy, he doesn't even blink. He's just staring at the audio recorder. And he just looks up at me and he's just like, okay. He did not have a care in the world.
He picked your photograph out and signed the back of it. George Taylor, number 5, on June 2nd, 2015.
How I can put this on me?
As I'm watching Roderick Clark interact with Vin inside the interview room, I'm seeing a player, a real criminal. He came in here fully prepared to admit nothing and deny everything.
So at this point, we know we can't get anything else out of Roderick Clark. We don't have enough to arrest him. We thank Roderick for coming in, and we let him leave.
I mean, we're disappointed the plan didn't work, but that doesn't stop this train from leaving the station. We're still gonna make a murder arrest happen in this case.
All right, so what's next?
Round 2 with Raymond.
Copy.
Based on our previous interactions with Raymond McDaniel, we feel like this brother may talk to us. So we shift our focus back to getting a face-to-face with Raymond McDaniel.
So now it's 5 days later after the Roderick Clark interview.
Thanks for coming down, man.
Raymond McDaniels agrees to come in for an interview.
So I'm gonna be straight with you, man. We have enough to lock you and Roderick up for this boy's murder back in 91.
As I'm watching this interaction between Raymond McDaniel and my partner, I can tell this brother, these facts hit different. He's gonna give it up.
Tell us what happened that night. Were you in that stolen red Mustang?
Yeah.
Raymond McDaniel says they were literally on a robbing spree. They were just driving through the neighborhood, looking for people, looking for victims, anyone they could find.
Yo, man, check it out.
Yeah, they got stacks over there.
Okay. So do you know those fellas y'all robbed?
Nah, it just seemed like an easy lick.
According to Raymond McDaniel, both put on masks while sitting in the car.
That's right.
Got out and started firing their guns up in the air.
Give it up!
Raymond McDaniel admitted that this was a straight-out robbery, that's what their intent was that night, to get money and rob people. And that as the people started running and shots were fired, they got their loot, they went upon their way.
And afterwards, we ditched the car.
Raymond McDaniel even says when they were done with their robbing spree, they dumped off the stolen Mustang right in front of Tanner's Grocery. I mean, this brother's checking off all the boxes for us.
But we ain't try to shoot no kids.
Raymond McDaniel says they fired up into the air, but we know they fired directly into the crowd.
Doesn't matter. Because both you and Rod did kill him.
We got the confession, but we still had some work to do to shore up this case.
Unfortunately, none of the witnesses from Jeremiah's murder could make an ID from the lineup, and that's because the shooters had their faces covered.
We believe Roderick Clark and Raymond McDaniel also robbed Michael Simpson that same night.
We met up with Michael and put a pair of lineups in front of him.
He picked Raymond McDaniel as the one that shot him with a long gun.
This is 23 years later. That is incredible. Unfortunately, Michael doesn't pick Roger Clark out of a lineup. Still, it was enough.
On August 20th, 2015, we secure murder warrants for Raymond McDaniel and Roderick Clark. Both men are taken into custody without incident. Before his trial, Raymond McDaniel takes a plea for voluntary manslaughter. He's sentenced to 20 years in prison.
Roderick Clark sticks to his story and bonds out while awaiting trial. So I get a call out of the blue from someone connected to the case to let me know that while on bond, Roderick Clark actually died on January 26, 2018. We hadn't even gone to trial yet.
He died of natural causes, but he would have had life in front of him. So it's a case of karma.
11-year-old boy. That's rough.
This is a case where Quinn and I knew we had a tremendous task ahead of us. We could never allow this to happen to this family again.
I pray you find the man who killed my son.
Well, ma'am, I'm gonna tell you this right now. It's our intent to throw everything we have into this case.
We had to get this thing.
He said they were just robbing.
We wanted to make sure that we crossed every T and dotted every I in this case.
Tell us what happened that night.
What resonates with me the most is when we had the opportunity to call Jeremiah's mother and let her know, not only have we identified the killers of your son, they're sitting.
He was a caregiver. He was working hard to send money back to Cuba for his mother and grandmother.
He was living his best life. You know, he had a relationship, a great job, you know, great friends.
The dispatcher hears someone screaming.
After that, 2 gunshots, and the line goes dead.
He says, hey, it's over between us. I found a new person. He blindsides him.
This is like a complete shock to his system. He's now enraged.
You've got unrequited lover who is angry because he's been fooled.
No, I need you to tell me. This is something that got out of control.
To plan the breaking and entering, to bind him, the knife, the hammer. This is overkill. Like, this is insane.
St. Petersburg, Florida. Around 10 a.m. on December 21st, 2011, Pinellas County 911 receives a harrowing phone call.
The dispatcher, on the other hand, basically hears someone screaming.
You could hear the sheer terror in the victim's voice. And the 911 operator was trying to get a location for where he was, but he was so terrified that he couldn't spit it out.
What is the address?
The dispatcher tried to identify who the person was on the other end of the call. What they can get from him is that his name was Landy.
Then the call takes another disturbing turn.
Here's what appears to sound like 2 gunshots. And at that point, the screaming stops.
The line goes dead. No one answered the phone on callback.
The dispatcher jumps into action.
They're able to use the cell towers to try to triangulate the area where the call was being made from. Because it's coming from a cell phone, it's not exact. It can give you an area within a couple of blocks, sometimes or within a couple of 100 feet.
2 deputies, 2 separate units were dispatched to the location.
It's about quick thinking and getting people on the ground to try and find out what's going on and possibly locate or stop whatever is happening to Landy.
Landy Martinez Esquivel was born in Cuba on December 13, 1990.
Landy Martinez moved here with his father to South Florida when he was about 4 years old.
His mom, his grandmother, and I guess other siblings were still in Cuba.
He came out when he was 18 to his family and friends. His father supported him. He decided to make a break and move to the St. Petersburg area. For the LGBTQ community, there was a real shift in around 2010 and both a couple years before and afterwards, where St. Pete really became the epicenter for that community to live, thrive, open their own businesses, small businesses, restaurants, bars, that sort of thing.
Handsome and friendly, Landy found an instant community in St. Pete.
He was just this very fun-loving, outgoing person who loved people, loved his friends, just liked to have a good time.
He wanted to be, an openly gay man in a friendly community. He really genuinely loved people and loved being around people.
To support himself, Landy worked as a certified nursing assistant.
He started working in a skilled nursing facility where he took a real liking to the elderly people that had Alzheimer's.
He was working hard to send money back to Cuba for his mother and grandmother. He was a caregiver, he would help the residents take showers, get dressed, eat, helped with activities. If they were lonely, he'd sit by them and things like that. He actually really cared about all the residents, and they loved him to death.
At age 19, Landy began dating Jose Adame.
He did introduce me to him, told me they met over the internet, invited me over to the house. First impression, he seemed nice, sweet, genuine. They were a typical couple, cute, little kissies here and there, hugs, hold hands.
Once he found, his first real boyfriend online, he really devoted himself to that person. And that's, I think, he strived for in his early life, is that's what he wanted. He wanted to find love.
Eventually, the couple moved in together.
Landy's working at a nursing home, helping people at the end of their life. Jose's kind of a stay-at-home person.
Jose, he wasn't legal, so he couldn't really get a job right away. Odds and ends, he was a Avon lady. You can go door to door, but he would give Landy or me books. We'd take him to work.
From Landy's perspective, he was living his best life. He had, a relationship with someone who he obviously cared a great deal for. He had a great job, great friends.
But on the morning of December 21st, 2011, 21-year-old Landy makes a desperate call to 911.
You hear him pleading for his life. After that, you hear 2 gunshots, and the line goes dead.
When he's calling into 911, they can kind of use the cell towers to try to narrow down the area in which they are, but they can't get an exact address. Once they get to the area, then the deputies have to start knocking on doors and find out if anybody heard or saw anything.
Then about an hour after the initial call, another 911 call is received from North Carolina.
The caller identifies herself as Yadira Guzman.
She calls in and says, my girlfriend and I are snow skiing in North Carolina. We have security cameras on our house. They're no longer working. They could see it from their smartphone.
So she immediately called 911 because why were the cameras not on? It was very odd that there was no feed coming from them.
Something else adds to her concern.
She had been trying to reach her roommate, Landy Martinez. He wasn't answering phone calls, wasn't responding to text messages.
Here's the address. I have a real concern. Can you please do a welfare check?
The deputies were dispatched out to the address.
They knock on the front door, but get no response.
As the deputies walked around the back of the house, they realized that there was a broken window to the back of the house and that the screen to that window was sitting on the ground beneath the window. There was also a door to the back of the house that was slightly ajar. And at that point, deputies realized that there could be something going on inside the house, requested backup, and eventually entered the house.
These are tricky situations when you have, an open door or a broken window. Is the suspect still inside?
The deputies began to walk down the hallway, just clearing rooms as they go down. They reach the bathroom about 2/3 of the way down the hallway. Notice that there's some blood on the floor in there. The water's running inside the sink. And as they continued to clear the house, they made it to a bedroom that was on the northeast corner of the house. And that's when they found the victim deceased in the home.
That they found a Hispanic male victim face down on the floor, blood. He was wearing a t-shirt and underwear, and they noticed that he was soaking wet.
A look at his driver's license photo confirms the victim is the original 911 caller, Landy Martinez.
He's clearly deceased, so they back out and they secure the residence.
When they go out to do a welfare check, the best for them is when they find the person and he or she is okay. In this instance, it came with the other one. There's a crime scene here, there's a homicide now, and we've got to go from trying to find if this person's okay to find out who did it.
About an hour after he placed a desperate 911 call, Pinellas County Sheriff's deputies discover the body of 21-year-old Landy Martinez inside a St. Petersburg home. Detectives arrive on the scene.
He is soaking wet. He's still wearing his underwear and a t-shirt. But there were knife wounds on Landy's hands and parts of his body.
The victim had what appeared to have been tape residue on his arms and on his legs.
He had a lot of wounds on him. He had a lot of bruising on the hands. He had the laceration on the forehead.
The wounds are mostly superficial until investigators identify the cause of death.
He had been shot on the left side of his head, right behind the left ear. He had also been shot once in the chest.
There were shell casings that were recovered near his body, which means he was shot at fairly close range.
Investigators searched the house for more evidence.
The whole place was just like ransacked, as if there had been a fight or something.
It looks like it was potentially a burglary. You had electronics that were stacked up, near the door, duffel bags that were full of electronics. The TV was taken off the wall.
But a closer look points to something more sinister.
In the bathroom, it's kind of old style where it's a tub with a shower and it has the sliding glass doors. Those doors are off the track and angled. There's blood, visible blood, on the inside of the tub, on the outside of the tub.
The victim had to be in the bathroom at some point in time, and that there was some sort of a struggle that went on.
There was a knife on the counter of the sink. There was a hammer, a claw hammer on the sink counter. And there was a cotton glove, like gardening glove, inverted, kind of balled up like it was taken off. It was only one glove, not two. In the bathroom, we find duct tape. Pieces of duct tape. Upon further examination, you'll see hair stuck to the duct tape. And then when you examine the body, you'll see where his wrists are missing hair. And you'll also be able to see the width, which is consistent with the duct tape. And it's kind of a lighter color. And then the same thing we see on his ankles.
He was clearly bound with duct tape, probably placed in the shower at some point, was being, tortured.
An exhaustive search of the house turns up a potentially important piece of evidence.
Landy's cell phone was actually found in the bedroom just south of where he was. According to the investigator that located the cell phone, it was under the mattress in the bedroom in the southeast corner of the house.
Investigators locate the security cameras.
The cameras were all exterior cameras. Although you could look at the cameras real time, nothing was being recorded.
The live feeds had been disconnected when whomever it was that was inside the house disconnected the computer.
You've got a very serious crime scene, what appears to be a murder. And so now you got to shift into the mode of who did this and where are they?
Based on a clue from Landy's 911 call, detectives believe they might be looking for more than one suspect.
He said that they are trying to kill me. We believe at least, at a minimum, that there were at least 2 people involved. There could have been more, but we know that there's at least 2 people that were involved. Evidence-wise, there's nothing at the scene that points to a specific person.
So they started combing the neighborhood to see if there were any suspicious folks around, or if any of the neighbors saw anything, or there was any video from a home camera, a security camera.
The neighborhood canvassing detectives were able to come up with, there were 2 people at the time of this offense going door to door selling magazine subscriptions. Generic description, younger males, college age.
There were 2 guys on the day of the murder that were selling magazines door to door. And some of the neighbors said they were extremely aggressive and felt like, at least one said they wanted to come in the house and she didn't want to let them in the house. They thought, they sound like good suspects.
There was a potential, could one of them have done this? Where are they? How far have they gotten?
Pinellas County homicide detectives are at a St. Petersburg, Florida home, where 21-year-old Landy Martinez was shot and possibly tortured.
What we found out was that a number of neighbors had solicitors that had been coming to their house that morning to sell magazines. So what we had to do was to try to determine, was it legitimate that there were solicitors in the area that morning, or could this have been potential suspects?
One of the neighbors had a business card, so we're able to assign a detective to that lead.
While a detective follows up on the solicitors, another investigator makes a phone call to Yadira Guzman, Landy's roommate who called 911.
She proceeds to tell them about the relationship that our victim had with his ex-boyfriend.
They'd been in a relationship for an extended period of time, on and off, a little over a year. They were in the house for about 5 months when they decided to split, end their relationship, and Jose was told to leave the residence. It wasn't amicable, the split.
Those cameras were put in after Jose had moved out of the house. And they were actually put in because of Jose.
She explains that the breakup had set off a series of back-and-forth retaliation attempts between the ex-lovers.
There were times immediately following the relationship in which Jose had taken a car that belonged to the victim and took it to North Carolina and was purposely running red lights so that the victim could get tickets in the mail.
He was trying to punish Landy, I think, thinking that they'd think it's Landy's car and he would get the tickets.
But according to Yadira, Landy wasn't going to let Jose get the best of him.
So to get the car back, Landy tells Jose, I want to get back together, meet me at this McDonald's, and we'll get back together, and bring me the car.
Landy calls the sheriff's office and requests the deputy to come out to stand by to keep the peace. So Jose parks the vehicle. Landy gets up, goes and meets the deputy and tells him, hey, that's my vehicle. That's my ex-boyfriend. I want his stuff out of it. I'm taking it back.
The deputies confirmed that the car is registered to our victim, takes the keys.
And Landy takes all of Jose's belongings and dumps them out, and then drives the car away and leaves Jose there by himself to fend for himself. This really angered Jose.
It was a victory for Landy as he just left them there in the parking lot, and drove home. He accomplished what he wanted to, and he took control back of the situation.
The call with Yadira puts Jose on their radar. She also gives investigators another name to look into.
Our victim had recently started dating someone else. That person, his name was Jonathan. So with her providing information on how to get a hold of Jonathan, we have to now reach out to Jonathan to make sure that he's not a potential suspect.
Detectives reached Jonathan by phone at his home about an hour and a half from St. Petersburg. He details a phone call he had with Landy the night before.
Landy was repeatedly trying to assure him that everything with Jose had been completely broken off, that he was done with that relationship. He's talking with Landy, and Landy says, I want to call Jose while you're on the phone with me, and I just want you to listen in on the conversation and be assured that the relationship is over with.
It's a three-way call. You be quiet, and I will go through with Jose telling him that this is over, and you can hear it in first person. The night of this murder, around midnight, there's a phone call. He says, hey, it's over between us. Found a new person. I have a new love interest. I'm really attached to this guy. I'm very happy. And Jose says, well, I'm glad for you. Landy then tells Jose, and by the way, Jonathan's on the phone. So he blindsides him on this call.
This is like a complete shock to his system, and he's now enraged because Landy got the best of him.
Jonathan tells detectives that the call ended and he went to work.
After getting off from work, he just decided to text Landy just to make sure everything was okay, let him know that he was off work. And he received a response back from Landy that just said something to the effect of okay.
The responses he was getting from Landy were not making sense. They were very short, they were very curt.
Then Jonathan says he got blindsided.
And then he starts to get text messages back from Landy's phone saying, hey, I want to get back with Jose. Jose is the love of my life. Now this is 6 hours after the three-way call where Landy is professing his love for Jonathan and telling Jose in person he doesn't love him anymore.
And that was completely a 360 from what just happened hours earlier.
The morning after the call with Jonathan, detectives attend the autopsy.
The autopsy confirmed what we were able to see at the crime scene, that the victim had been shot twice. The shot to the head was fatal.
It also backs up another theory.
He did suffer a laceration to the forehead near between the eyes. That's consistent with being struck by the hammer. And that hammer's being in the bathroom, duct tape in the bathroom.
The autopsy confirmed that he was really tortured before he was shot and killed.
But who would commit such a heinous act? Investigators confirm that it wasn't Jonathan.
His alibi, of course, is that he was at work. It was a warehouse job. They had videos, they have a time clock, then he had coworkers.
That leaves one name on their list.
You start getting a lot of information that's pointing towards a certain person, Jose Adame.
Detectives in Pinellas County, Florida, believe that 21-year-old Landy Martinez was tortured before he was shot twice at close range. Landy's ex-boyfriend, Jose Adame, is the top suspect, but all investigators have for now is a hunch.
We haven't been able to develop any of the evidence. We don't have anything that's tying Jose to the crime scene.
They decide to go back and re-listen to the 911 call and clean up some of the audio and see if they can glean any other information about who the possible suspect was.
So what we do next is we're going to transcribe the 911 call. And we're going to document each word and each sound that we hear in that call.
They were able to hear Landy saying something to the effect of, "Stay away, Jose." That then immediately put Jose at the crime scene and involved as the perpetrator.
Was he the only one?
Whether or not there was someone else involved, that still was something they needed to figure out.
Detectives revisit the two men that neighbors reported were selling magazines just before the murder.
The company was out of California, and they hire local college kids. They drop them off in a neighborhood, have them go door to door to sell magazine subscriptions. We were able to locate them and determine what they were doing in the neighborhood and eliminate them as potential suspects.
There was nothing connecting them to the house that Landy was in. Ultimately, they were able to be excluded as suspects by the detectives.
Investigators focus on finding Jose Adame. But with no permanent address since moving out of the house with Landy, this isn't easy.
Where Jose went, it was largely a mystery.
They looked to Landy's friends for help.
We were able to identify a witness, Gail Rigg. She's a dear friend of Landy. They worked together, they were co-workers.
I met with Officer Judy. Pretty much everybody with everything that had gone on the past couple days kind of suspected Jose did it. It's like, I have a gut feeling he did it.
Gail says she has been exchanging messages with Jose in the days since Landy's death. She shows them to detectives.
She tells him, asks, "Have you heard about Landy?" She said, "Yes, that he has a new boyfriend and he's moving on." She says, "No, Landy was murdered last night." He said, "Oh, that can't be true. I just talked to him, last night."
Jose said he must have missed the news because he has been out of state.
He says, "I've been here. I left Florida several days ago."
Investigators want to talk to Jose, but are cautious about hitting the road.
Rather than going up there, trying to follow up on this investigation and talking to him realizing that he's a suspect in the case and now he's disappeared and we can't find him anymore, the best thing for us to do is to try to see is there another case that we can use to get him in custody.
Detectives get creative, locating an old police report from nearby High Point.
We locate a report where Jose Adame was found inside a woman's duplex in High Point. He got caught in the house. He was burglarizing it. She did not want to prosecute. We made recontact with her, and she said she did want to prosecute. So we were able to obtain an arrest warrant for burglary on an unrelated case so that we could use the U.S. Marshal Service to locate and take Jose into custody. They have a unit for tracking down fugitives, and they agreed to accept this case, and they were able to locate a possible location for Jose, which was in Hickory, North Carolina.
6 days after Landy's death, Florida detectives traveled to North Carolina.
We made contact with him inside Catawba County Jail. He's read his rights, and he agrees to give us a statement. He told us that he was in Hickory, North Carolina on the dates of the offense. You thought that you got back to North Carolina December 17th, around 10 p.m., is that correct?
Yes, it was a Saturday night.
He talked briefly about being on a phone call with Jonathan, but denied that he was ever in the area at the time that this all occurred. He really tried to portray the breakup, that is, as more of a mutual breakup. that they decided to part ways and that everything was good. They just decided to be good friends. But confronting him with the information that that was not the case, obviously he denied that and wanted to leave it as though everything was fine.
Okay, so it wasn't angry.
No.
Everybody got along?
Detectives play the 911 call for Jose.
Jose, it's time to tell the truth. Do you want to hear something? I want you to listen to my partner here. He's going to be playing something off of a computer for you, okay? That was Landy. Did you hear Landy screaming for his life? Now's the time to tell the truth. Let's get this behind you.
No, I need you to tell me. Is this something that got out of control? Something that was going to be innocent? Maybe even something that was going to fix things, but it got out of control. It's time, Jose.
What happened, Jose? It's time. Do you want to hear the call again? Is that a yes or no?
But no matter how hard they press, Jose refuses to budge.
He denied any knowledge in the homicide. He denied being in Pinellas County. We don't have enough to charge him with homicide at this time.
One month after Landy Martinez was tortured and killed, his ex-boyfriend, Jose Adame, is being held in a North Carolina jail on unrelated charges.
Although he did not confess to the actual murder, we knew that while we're waiting on our evidence to be developed, that he wasn't going to get away from us.
Investigators need evidence that proves Jose was involved. After weeks of trying, they're finally able to access the contents of Landy's password-protected cell phone.
When we got in the phone, I mean, we're searching the phone. We're going to search the entire phone. It's basically a computer. Well, this one had a video on it, and it was dated the day of the homicide.
We were able to identify some video that was on there that was taken of the victim while he was inside the bathroom.
When you play the video, you actually see Landy bound. He's duct taped. You don't see his ankles, but you do see his wrists. He's duct taped. He's in the same shirt, the same underwear in the video. He's in the bathtub with the shower running on his back. He's crying, and you see his hands, so you know he doesn't have the iPhone. Someone is videotaping him. The person doesn't talk on the videotape, but Landy is crying and he's speaking in Spanish. And basically what he's saying is, I'm a horrible person, I'm terrible, Jose is great, he is the love of my life, nothing is Jose's fault. You know, these kind of statements, which make absolutely no sense for Landy to be making freely and voluntarily.
He's basically telling whomever it was holding the camera and recording this, saying something to the effect of that Jose had nothing to do with this. And right away that tells us that more than likely Jose had something to do with this.
Investigators head back to Hickory. But this time, Jose isn't the only person they want to talk to.
When they get to North Carolina, we identified a mother, identified a sister, and talked to them about, okay, when did he leave? How did he leave? When did he come back? Did anyone go with him when he left? You know, just trying to get as much information as we possibly could.
We go to the residence, and there's a woman walking down the street towards us, towards the house. And we say, hey, are you going to that mobile home? And she says, yeah, that's where my family is. And we say, oh, hey, listen, we're up here about Jose.
The woman identifies herself as Jose's niece. She reveals she was the one who rescued her uncle after Landy left him stranded at a Florida McDonald's.
She says, well, 2 days ago, I took a day off work and drove all the way down to Florida. Yeah? And I picked my uncle up at this house. And then I drove him all the way back home. She says, and he borrowed my mom's car and drove back to Florida. That puts him in Florida on the day of the murder. We ask, where's this vehicle at right now? And she points across the mobile home park. She says, that's my mom's car right there. Now we have the vehicle that was used to transport. There's potential for evidence to be inside that vehicle.
Detectives obtain a search warrant.
They took that car back to the local sheriff's office up there. We had our own forensic specialist there to process the car for us.
The forensic tech finds blood on the steering wheel. We also found the other side of that cotton glove in between the seat and the center console down in there.
The evidence from the vehicle is submitted for testing.
DNA takes a while for it to come back, even to this day. So DNA evidence is exciting, but it isn't now. It isn't instant. I hope we have DNA.
As detectives continue to build the case, the cell phone records come in.
Around the time of the homicides, we can actually place this phone within a 2-mile area of the crime scene.
We were able to put Landy's cell phone at the same tower that Jose's on. He said, I'm in Hickory. Well, we know he's in Florida, and they're hitting off the same tower.
And then shortly after that 911 call is made, we can track his phone now leaving that area, going eastbound on Gandy Boulevard towards Tampa and leaving the area.
And now you've established probable cause for his arrest. At least now we can formally charge him.
On February 17th, 2012, Jose Adame is charged with first-degree murder.
He wasn't going to go any further to incriminate himself. He decides to not talk anymore, and he wants a lawyer.
Over 4 years after the brutal torture and murder of Landy Martinez, his ex-boyfriend, Jose Adame, goes on trial in Pinellas County, Florida. The prosecution plays the harrowing 911 call and the video of Landy being tortured for the jury.
I've been a reporter for more than 50 years. I cannot think of a similar crime where detectives have the audio of the crime and the video of the crime. When there's an in-home murder and they've got audio and video on the cell phone and the torturing, that's incredible. I mean, that thing only happens in the movies and TV and never happens in real life, except it did here.
To plan the breaking and entering, to bind him, the knife, the hammer, this is overkill. To put him in the shower and run water on him while you're videotaping him, like, this is insane.
The state presents new evidence in the form of DNA.
The glove left inside the scene, which had Jose Adame's DNA on it, it also had Landy's DNA on it. The glove in North Carolina had Jose's DNA as well as Landy's DNA. The blood on the steering wheel belonged to Landy.
Prosecutors argue that Jose acted out of a twisted drive for vengeance that took root the day Landy left him behind in a McDonald's parking lot.
You've got the torture from an unrequited lover who is angry because he's been fooled a couple of times by Landy. It is from the McDonald's incident to the phone call.
He wasn't going to walk away. That was his motive. He wanted to take back control in one final movement, if you will, in this relationship between him and Landy. He was going to have the last word no matter what, and that included shooting and killing Landy Martinez.
But the defense claims someone else entirely is responsible.
He said, but I had nothing to do with it, and said, he's the one that shot him, he's the one that did it, it wasn't me.
The jury doesn't buy the defense's version of events. On July 15, 2016, a verdict is returned.
Jose was convicted of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison with no parole.
Jose just, in my opinion, got off easy, basically. You're gonna spend the rest of your life locked away while, you know, an awesomely amazing person is no longer with us.
For investigators, the verdict is a victory. But Landy's final words leave a loose end they can't tie.
It's clear in the original call. They're going to kill me. They are, the contraction, they're going to kill me. There's two perpetrators here. In this case, it's not completely solved. The case is, you know, still being worked on by cold case detectives at the sheriff's office. You know, I do hope that we were able to get the second person and have a successful conclusion.
But Jose's conviction does give Landy's loved ones some room to heal.
I was glad that, you know, the family and his friends would have closure, at least knowing that the person that they knew wanted to harm Landy had been convicted.
He tried to see the good in everybody. Somebody was having a bad day, he was there to, you know, lift their spirits or fix their problem, help any way he could.
Trận đấu chuẩn bị được bắt đầu với quyền dẫn bóng thuộc về Manchester United.
Rodrigo. Đó là pha phản công. Bàn thắng đã tới gần, không thể bỏ lỡ. Một bàn thắng tuyệt vời.
Đó là một chân sút đẳng cấp, một cơ hội không thể tuyệt vời hơn. Manchester City đã vươn lên dẫn trước từ tình huống ra bóng. Jude Bellingham.
Như vậy là bóng đã một cú sút.
Đó là bàn thắng cho Manchester City.
Vâng, bàn thắng đầu tiên đã đem đến sự tự tin cho cầu thủ này. Và rồi, một lẽ tất nhiên, bàn thứ hai đã tới. Một bàn thắng có sự cộng hưởng của yếu tố may mắn khi nó đã đập trúng sang ngang. Rodrigo. Và giờ họ tổ chức tình huống phản công. Một cú áp phích trong ngày hôm nay, một ngày thi đấu hoàn hảo tới lúc này.